Great to see you all. Man, I was almost late for my own funeral here, right? I've got this thing they call an atomic clock. I looked up at it, it said 10 to 2, and I thought, well, I got another hour. And I started seeing all these people coming in, and it's like, something's wrong here. It's actually 10 to 3. So great to have you here. I want to start with maybe a little story and case study about technology commercialization that we did on a program called Coresight to give you a feel for what the process is like from a startup point of view, and then we'll jump into where we're heading with our work with Wright State University on the DoD Office Economic Adjustment project.
And then your block.
And then your thing! In this court. And then raise these banners.
Can't get all the love.
You can be the best in this house.
You could be faster than the fastest. And faster than that. You can carry on the legs. You kiss this guy. Then had a couple of these.
Be the champion, the one we don't have to talk about. You could be the best of all time, the one even I can't deny.
And then make everyone want to be like you.
And you can stop there, but you won't, because you're not done yet.
For the athletes moving the game forward, Gatorade's creating the fuel to do the same. Fueling today, fueling the future.
Okay, so first of all, how many saw the AFRL Inside Technology in that video? Okay, we have a few people that know that there actually is AFRL technology being talked about here. If you go to the next chart. And it actually started with Dr. Josh Hagan from AFRL, a researcher in human performance, Dr. Jason Heckenfield, who works in micro devices, advanced micro devices laboratory at the University of Cincinnati. They worked in a cooperative research effort, which they were basically the first to measure biomarkers from sweat. Very, very interesting, because now instead of having to take blood samples every hour and figure out what's going on inside your body, we measure in real time, continuously, what's happening with those biomarkers through your sweat. And in 2013, WBI was exposed to the technology that Jason and Josh had developed. Said, well, man, this seems like an exciting technology commercialization opportunity, right? How do we, what markets might this apply to? And we actually took this through a process to get to the point where the little Band-Aid there that says Gatorade is actually a piece of flexible electronics, has sweat sensors in it, Bluetooth, battery, sends data on electrolytes from your body to your mobile phone and ultimately to the cloud, where it can be analyzed by either the individual athlete or the trainer or the team, and used then to customize the sports drink, the fuel that you're drinking to maximize your performance, whether it's in training or in the game. From an AFRL point of view, you know, the human performance folks talk a lot about sense, assess, and then augment, right? Augment your performance. And that's exactly what's happening here with the sweat sensor, the analytics, and ultimately, what am I doing about it? I'm customizing the sports fuel that I'm providing here. So the question is, how did we get from laboratory invention, first of its kind patent, and the sweat sensing technology to a case where a major company, Gatorade under PepsiCo, is talking about taking this to market. Next slide. And there were two factors. The story actually starts back in early 2013. I don't know if Scott Korndike's here.
Jordan and Pat.
Okay, but Scott Korndike was at the time at the Dayton Development Coalition, and he came to me along with Jeff Hogan, who's the president of Dayton Development Coalition, saying, hey Les, we have an opportunity here, we think, in the region to go after some state money, large amount of state money, to commercialize, create a mega center for commercialization. We use Ohio State Third Frontier funding through a grant to get this kicked off for the region, but we need to partner with somebody that understands and has a workable commercialization model that's been proven nationally. And they introduced myself and the WBI team here in early 2013 to Dalton Pont from SRI International. SRI International has a great reputation for taking technology out of universities and federal labs and creating startups and commercializing that technology. The Siri app on your iPhone was developed by SRI. They created a startup and took that technology commercially to Apple. Any of you that have, hopefully not, but if you've had robotic surgery, they're usually using something called Da Vinci machine. There's another case where they took technology out of the universities, created a startup, and now one of the world's leaders in medical robotic surgery technology. So SRI had a process that they used that was what they called market-driven market-pull. So ultimately you need good technology, but in the end, if there isn't this huge market pull on the technology, on whatever system concept you have, you're going to fail in the marketplace. And so a lot of what their process had to do with is identifying with users what that market need is. So they have a process, and we'll talk more about this process that we adopted and then adapted to this Dayton region in getting from here to there. So at the time it was ourselves, SRI, and Pericles Consulting teamed together to walk through the SRI process to create this, I'll call it designer company startup. Next. So this is what we experienced during the first 10 months of walking through this process. First, I'm going to go through these very quickly. Number one, I said this is market-driven market analysis. We spent time with athletes at all levels, professional, collegiate, Olympic, sports team owners, unions who might object to using this type of technology, regulators, to professional trainers for these sports teams to say, if we had this type of capability, would you use it? How would you use it? What's your interest level? And we got a huge amount of interest. Next year. You ultimately have to have a solution concept, a concept of operations that the users will accept. We pull that together. Next. Then you have to have somebody that's going to take the lead, right? Somebody's going to step out there, take the risk, put some skin in the game, and get the enterprise started, the new venture started. Whether it's within an existing company, and or it's a spin out from an existing company, or it's a brand new startup, as the case we have here with CoreSight, you need somebody that's going to be the champion for the effort. In this case, Scott Ackerman was the founder. We had actually met Scott during some of these user interviews early on in the process. Scott was a wrestler at Penn State, so he had an athletic background himself. He had a bachelor's degree in Penn State from kinesiology, something like that. Anyway, he understands the physiology of athletes, and he was an entrepreneur himself. He has 2 physical fitness gyms in the Washington, D.C., Virginia area. He'd been a trainer, strength trainer for the Washington Redskins. He'd been a trainer during spring track training for the Washington Nationals. He knew a lot of folks at all levels at the pro and collegiate level that might take an interest in this technology. So we had a founder, but Scott knew a lot about physiology and training, knew nothing about Bluetooth electronics and Band-Aids that were flexible and all of this sort of thing. So we had to build a development team around him, and we did that. For the software development, we brought in Amity. Amity was a small business here in the Dayton region, mobile apps. You've probably never heard of them, but hugely capable company. They'd actually done worldwide music apps for phones. They know how to scale up. So we brought them on the team. Key Electronics is large-scale manufacturer. They're located in Jeffersonville, Indiana, so that's just north of Louisville. We needed somebody that could produce literally 100,000, 1 million of these little Band-Aid patches a month that are flexible and have the capability we need, and that was willing to take a little risk and put some in-kind resources into the initial product development as we got the company started, and they did that. And then how to pull together the hardware, the software, and the program scheduling that was needed to be done for the eventual products and the product channels that we're going through. Next. We have a company now, so at that point, we can do business in terms of licensing agreements. In this particular case, AFRL and the University of Cincinnati co-developed the technology. AFRL signed their licensing rights to UC. UC created a new company, Ekron Systems, to market and further license sweat sensing technology. And there are other improvements being made on the technology out of UC. So we assisted CoreSite in negotiating their licensing agreement with Ekron Systems in the field of worldwide athletics. There are going to be other uses for this technology coming out of Ekron Systems, as you can imagine, glucose monitoring, medical applications, workplace applications for sensing fatigue, all of that. Next. Next thing we did was develop what I'll call a minimum viable product. This was like the very first iteration of something that works, that you can show potential customers, potential partners in production and end use, so if they feel comfortable, you're far enough along that we can team with you. In this case, it involved not only the flexible electronics Band-Aid, but the mobile app software that went with that. All this was done in a very quick time frame. In fact, as many of you know, I had like 38 years in the laboratory environment working for AFRL. We never let anything like this go to the customer right away. It was years and years of development. This was literally months and months, and the first iteration was finished, and the guys took it from here to Gatorade and Under Armour and said, we've got something that we think you'd be interested in. And the Under Armour guy said, everybody in here says they can measure sweat. We don't believe it. They put it on, went on an exercise bike, and it worked. But that was a scary time. Because I would have never taken it. That's what entrepreneurs do, right? Okay, next. Then our team hooked CoreSite up with what we call possible channel partners. So these are folks that can get the end product to the market without having to recreate all the distribution channels from scratch. And so you look at national providers of sports equipment that have the heart rate monitors, maybe they like to measure sweat as well. The Under Armours, the Nike apparel are all into now digitally connecting the athlete or the average person on their training to data. And then you have the sports fuel people, whether it's a Powerade or Gatorade type of sports drink. All of these are possible. Went and talked to all of them, and the introductions were made at a fairly high level rather than at the ground level. Next. Then ultimately, you have to have a business model that is going to be successful and considers a lot of the factors we've just talked about. We use what's called a business canvas process. It's basically a one-page business plan. You can put a first cut of this together in a few hours and then iterate on it over time and help CoreSite put together their investment deck to go out and seek seed funding to actually develop the real prototypes for end product use. Next. Okay, so that was the first 10 months, and that was a pretty wild ride. That was a lot to get done in 10 months. So what happened from September 2014 to today? Well, we waited. Waited on money. Investment's hard to get, particularly investment seed funding for your early prototypes, early product development. You don't have any revenue coming in yet. You've all watched Shark Tank, right? What's the first question? Oh, what was your revenue over the last year? Well, the answer is, well, actually it's negative. We're doing this stuff and we don't have any money coming in. But they were successful. They raised friends and family money initially, and they were off and running with that core funding. And then they began serious product development. They are teamed with Gatorade. Turns out Gatorade has one of the premier sports science laboratories in the United States. Worldwide recognized for being able to quantify athlete performance versus intake and outtake types of parameters. And so CoreSite is teamed with them on product development towards a sweat patch that can ultimately be integrated with the rest of their vision for these personalized sports fuels for athletes. Also, just recently worked to facilitate a cooperative research and development agreement between 711th Human Performance Wing and the Air Force Research Lab and CoreSite. This is really huge from both parties' perspectives. It allows a sharing of test data between the two. AFRL under Josh Hagan has a very, very capable laboratory for instrumentating and measuring human performance, but they also have the ability to work on Air Force special operators who are high-performance athletes as well. So there's this data sharing that's going to go together. Of course, Gatorade has the ability to scale up the testing into the hundreds and ultimately the thousands, right? And then ultimately the tens of thousands. And all that will go back to AFRL. There's also the opportunity to share the commercialized products with AFRL for the use in their testing. So while AFRL will ultimately, if this venture is successful, get royalty streams back, I think higher priority for them, certainly immediately, is the advantages of having this cooperative research and development agreement. Next. So still ahead is product launch. That's in the works. Hopefully that will be successful, and of course I will be successful. It's still a journey, right? By some measures, there is success at this point in terms of up and running and getting started, but we're still pre-revenue. Okay, next. So, that was exciting. Of course, that was exciting. In the end, we ended up blending SRI's model with some of what we do here in WBI in terms of innovation and connecting the technology capabilities here in the region to these startup companies. Okay, so as you'll see quite often, what it takes to solve a market need is not a single technology to the market, it's integrated technologies, and we have a nice process for making that happen, for identifying these other technologies that can be used. So we had a second pilot project that we ran with SRI that launched in 2014, Global Flight. This is another exciting startup. It is using AFRL technology. I think of it as, any of you who've been associated with command and control systems in the military, it's pretty impressive, right? They have a room twice this size with 50 people, 150 flat screen displays, high-end servers, and data coming in from the world, and they're integrating that data, presenting a coherent picture, and then issuing commands out to airborne assets, satellites, whatever. But it costs millions and millions and millions of dollars. You go to command and control centers in a mid-market city like Dayton or Cincinnati, or even many of the state emergency management centers, you look around, it's a few people, it's a 911 call center, there's not a whole lot happening, right? You say, well, how can I get from all of this capability that the military knows how to do to something that regional centers could use affordably? And that's what Global Flight is all about, helping the emergency management, first responders. And again, in this case, stood up Global Flight as a Ohio-based company from scratch. They have licensed AFRL technology to be one element of technologies that have been integrated from several other sources for this solution. Recently, the Cooperative Research and Development Agreement was signed between Global Flight and AFRL to further development, and actually the in-kind value of that cooperative research is $300,000 on each side. I mean, it's fairly significant what's going to be done there. So that leads us, well, we had some lessons learned. So other than this is very, very hard. It really, really is. You need a venture lead. This is really obvious, but when we go through this process of the technologist has a really great idea, and then you get several other technologists from other small businesses or a large business together, you sit them around a table, you say, okay, we're going to start this thing, who's going to lead it? It's crickets. Right? It's crickets. This is scary, we've never done this before, done a lot of work with the military under contract, but not so sure about this stepping out to start something in the commercial world on our own. So you have to find somebody that's willing to do that, whether it's somebody within an existing company and they're going to start a new product line, or it's one of these new startups. The other thing is early stage capital. There's nothing new about that. It's just we would have been so much faster and so much farther ahead if we had even a little seed money to get both CoreSite and Global Flight started. So 2 gaps, and we have ways to address those. So last year we were part of a successful proposal that the region made to the DoD Office of Economic Adjustment. It's for basically diversifying the economy in the region. The philosophy from DoD is that this region's highly dependent on Wright Pat, on Springfield Air National Guard, and if the DoD budgets go down, then there's going to be economic impact to the region, right? So how could we minimize that? And one approach is to say, well, let's take all the technology talent that we have in the region, and instead of the pie getting smaller, let's make it bigger by looking at these commercial markets. Can we put a process together for the region? Can we create an ecosystem that will allow the region to take these huge technology assets that we have and move some of this stuff to commercial applications? So that's what the Dayton Metro Plan for Economic Diversity is all about. We have Hugh Bolton here. Hugh, raise your hand, from Wright State University. John Owen also from Wright State. So Wright State is the lead for the region on this effort. We have one of the sub-elements within this effort. Ours is called Technology Development Commercialization. And it's really to adapt what we've learned so far in starting CoreSite and Global Flight, take those lessons learned, further adapt them to this region, scale up to do multiple projects, and then see where that takes us in terms of further lessons learned and bringing this process to the region. So, in starting out on that effort, the basic philosophy for you all is this stuff is scary, it is hard if you haven't done it before. Our team will mentor you and or your team. If it's you by yourself and you need a team, we'll help you get the right team together, and then we will walk you through the commercialization process. It's an iterative process. We literally went through this loop about 3.5 times in the initial 10 months of our work on CoreSite. Okay? So this is not a static thing. It's very much high velocity. Do as much as you can right now and move on. There's the piece that has to do with understanding the market. A little bit later in the presentation, Bob Lee is going to talk to you about precision agriculture and what the market needs look like in that arena. The Connect and Integrate is where we're bringing multiple technologies together and beginning to look at innovative concepts and solutions to the market needs. Ultimately, on further iterations, it involves rapid prototyping. And then ultimately, how do I get this thing to market? What does my business canvas look like, my business model? What are my options and strategies for taking this to market? Okay, next. So, we've taken that circle. The problem with the circle is, well, how do I know where I am in the circle? And sometimes I've done 3 iterations on one thing and 1 iteration on something else, and I'm getting behind, and ultimately, I need money. So there's certain things you have to accomplish before you get certain stages of money, right? So we've stage-gated the process, and you can think of each one of these 4 stage gates as successive iterations of the model I showed you on the previous chart. But at each stage, you're taking more and more time, you're starting to spend more and more money as you get into prototyping in particular. Here you're doing as much as you can up front with as little money or no money as you can. So this initial stage is 2 months. It's all about what are your good ideas as technologists, or maybe idea people to solve the market need. In this first case, it'll be precision agriculture. We will do a first go-around with you, sit down, talk to you, understand what you have, and try and make initial assessment of the value of that idea going forward against the market need. Then we have a longer period of time, 4 months, to mature that concept, to bring in other team members if we need to develop a concept of operations, begin looking at what the business model might be, and try and get you ready then to take this as an investment opportunity for seed funding. At that point, the OEA work is done. We found somebody raised their hand and said, yeah, we're willing to lead this. We've got a team, we've got some concept operations, we know how big the addressable market is, we've got a good investor deck put together, and we need to prototype, we need money. And so that's up to what we call the prime client, the founder, the initial team to go out and sell in the market. In these first 2 stages under the OEA grant, obviously our team is being paid by OEA, but you all have to put in some in-kind time, in-kind commitment to work with us as we develop these value propositions to take forward. As you move along here, there's increasing commitment on your side. Ultimately, it's your company, it's your success or your failure. If you want, we can continue to support you in these later stages like we did with Coresight, but then that becomes on a fee-for-service basis. Next. So where are we on the OEA grant? We took our original model that we were using with SRI, we've documented what that was, and then we've taken the lessons learned and what we feel needs to be adapted going forward for the Dayton region, and we've summarized that in a report here. And this report is available on the WBI website. If you go to our website, there's a tab, commercialization, click on that, and you'll get to the report. So that's there for everybody to take a